Let me tell you all how my best friend almost ruined my life out of jealousy. My name is Adeshewa. I come from a royal home, but I never liked flaunting royalty. I was raised with discipline, humility, and a deep sense of contentment. I am the only child of my wealthy and influential parent, but I lived simple. Since childhood, I had one best friend named Tolani. Our parents died early in a ghastly motor accident, and my dad took it upon himself to sponsor our education from primary school all the way to the university. We were inseparable, more like sisters than friends. People often assumed we were twins because of how close we were, and I loved that. Truly, I did. When I got into a relationship with Richard, a handsome, kind, and wealthy man, Tolani remained close to us. She had no man of her own, no relationship, no suitor, and it troubled me. I often brought her along on dates just so she wouldn't feel alone. I wanted her to feel loved, included, and important. We graduated. I finished with a first class. She managed a second class credit. We went for our NYS in different states for the first time ever. I served in Uyo, she in Kaduna, but even the distance didn't break us, or so I thought. After service, Richard and I planned our wedding. I was glowing with joy. Tolani was my bridesmaid, smiling beside me as I said my vows to the man of my dreams. Everything felt perfect until it wasn't. A few months after our wedding, I became pregnant. I was terribly sick during that pregnancy. My husband was an angel, cooking, cleaning, washing, helping me every way he could, but he suggested getting a maid. I refused. Instead, I invited Tolani to stay with us. I trusted her more than anyone. That was the biggest mistake of my life. At first, having Tolani in my home felt normal, comfortable even. It was like old times. We laughed, cooked together, watched movies late into the night, and she would even help me massage my swollen feet. I was truly grateful. My pregnancy became easier with her around, and I would often say to Richard, "You see why I can't do without Tolani?" But behind that smile, behind those kind gestures, was a different person entirely. I didn't notice it immediately, but Tolani had started dressing more seductively. At first, I thought nothing of it. Maybe she was just enjoying herself, finally embracing fashion. But then I started seeing things, strange things. One afternoon, while I was resting in the room, I overheard them laughing together in the kitchen, my husband and Tolani. The laugh was too loud, too intimate. When I walked in, they went silent. I pushed the thought aside. It's just me being insecure, I told myself. After all, this was Tolani, my best friend, the girl I practically shared my life with. But it didn't stop there. Richard started coming home late than usual. His excuses became weaker. Tolani began spending more time in the living room, all made up, pretending to be watching TV, but always glancing at the door the moment he walked in. I started seeing flashes of secret smiles, moments they didn't think I noticed. Then it happened. One night, I woke up in pain and went to the kitchen for warm water, only to see what I never imagined. Tolani in a robe, almost half naked, Richard shirtless. Frozen, my heart stopped. They both stuttered excuses. Tolani claimed she was getting water, and Richard said he was coming from the bathroom, but the looks on their faces said otherwise. I did not shout. I did not cry. I just stared at them. That night, I didn't sleep. The child in my womb moved with restlessness just like my spirit. In the days that followed, the energy in the house became heavy. I started hearing them whispering when they thought I was asleep. I checked Richard's phone one day when he was in the shower, and what I saw chattered me. "Baby, I miss your touch. When is she going back to her parents' house again? I want you again tonight." It was real. Tolani had betrayed me, my own best friend, the one I brought into my home, the one I asked to help me. I fell to the ground that day and wept like a child. I confronted them both, and Rita tried to lie, but the evidence was clear. Tolani, she didn't even feel shame. She said, "You have everything, Adeshewa. the love, the family, the life. I was tired of standing in your shadows. She had always been jealous. She envied me all her life, but she wore the mask of loyalty. I sent her out of my house that night, and Richard, I gave him a choice, me and our unborn child or her. He broke down, begged, cried, claimed it was a mistake, but the damage was done. After the day I sent Tolani out of my house for betraying me, I decided to forgive Richard. But something inside me changed. I stopped trusting people the way I used to. Still, life moved on. A few months later, I gave birth to a beautiful baby girl. She looked just like her father, adorable and precious. Richard seems to change after that. His love for me deepened, or so it appeared. He was more caring, more present, and I started to believe maybe he had truly learned his lessons. One morning, I was taking my daughter for her immunization when I noticed a car following me. I turned off the main road. It turned too. I sped up. It did the same. My heart started to race in panic. I diverted into a lonely path and quickly stepped out of the car with my baby in my hands. Before I could take another step, I was ambushed. The men snatched my newborn from me and sped off, leaving me helpless and hysterical. I stood frozen, broken, screaming, tears pouring down my face. I called Richard immediately. He rushed to the scene and drove me home. The next day, we reported the kidnapping to the police. Days turned into weeks of endless searching, but there was no sign of my baby. We searched churches, mosques, hospitals, even the mortuary. Nothing. I could not eat. I couldn't sleep. I was a ghost of myself. I kept asking, who did I offend so deeply that they would punish me by taking my child? Out of desperation, I reached out to Tolani. Surprisingly, she picked up at the first ring and rushed to my side. She cried, apologized again for the past, and promised to be a better person. In my broken state, I accepted her back. What choice did I have? Together, we searched for my daughter, but she was never found. Eventually, I was forced to accept the painful reality. Life had to go on. Months later, I became pregnant again. This time, the pregnancy was different. I was strong, active, and full of life. Richard remained supportive and Tolani visited from time to time. I later gave birth to a healthy baby boy. This time, I was overly protective. I barely let him out of my sight, determined not to repeat my past mistakes. One weekend, Tolani came to visit and offered to help. I asked her to go to the market for me while I stayed back to rest and care for my baby. Shortly after she left, it began to rain. I hurried to her room to shut the windows, and that is when I saw something that would change everything. A small red dowry sat beside her bag. Something nudged me to open it. What I found inside shattered my soul. Page after page, she poured out her bitterness, how she had hated me since childhood for having everything she never did. Loving parents, a good home, academic success, and a perfect relationship. She wrote that she could never forgive me for throwing her out after I caught her with my husband. Then I saw the most horrifying entry. She wrote that on the 25th of August, she was the one that arranged for my daughter to be kidnapped, murdered, and dumped in a river. She went further to write that she had also planned to kidnap and kill my son this following week, just like she did with my daughter. My hands shook violently. My nails gave way. I couldn't breathe. How could she do this to me? Someone I called my sister, the only sister I thought I had. I cried till I had no more tears left. I knew what I had to do. I carried my son, drove straight to the police station, and handed over the dowry as evidence. She was arrested, and during interrogation, Tonali confessed to everything. She blamed it on years of jealousy, hatred, and bitterness towards my perfect life. She was sentenced to life imprisonment. Even then, I couldn't forgive myself, not for trusting her again, but for giving her the chance to hurt me and my innocent children. In time, with the support of my husband and family, I began to heal. I learned to forgive myself and move forward, but the scars remained. The moral lesson of the story is never invite a snake into your garden, even if you raised it from childhood. Childhood friendship is not a guarantee of loyalty. Jealousy can be silent but deadly. It may live for years, wearing the mask of love, and it can live in the heart of the one you called sister. Always watch the energy between your friend and your spouse. Don't ignore your instincts. Pay attention to signs. Institution is God's way of whispering. Kindness should have boundaries. Kindness without boundaries can be deadly. Not everyone deserves access to your home. Not every friend deserves access to your life. Some are enemies in disguise. Be careful who you let into your home, especially during vulnerable seasons. Not everyone deserves your trust, no matter how close they are. Forgiveness doesn't mean giving access again. Be wise. Protect your home, protect your peace, trust your instincts, never let guilt or emotion blind you to danger. I will never forget my daughter. I will never forget the betrayal. But most of all, I will never forget the lesson never to trust anyone too deeply again. The end.